Welcome everybody to the Area 111 live stream. This is your host RH coming at you again from the beautiful sunshine, freezing cold Florida. I mean, it got below 50 degrees last night and looks like it's heading that way again tonight. You know, for us Floridians, it's kind of cool, kind of chilly. Uh, you know, so the audio is working fine on YouTube. So I got that echo. Great. And this is how it started, the live streaming for RH. And so this is how it got started on Veterans Day. You could call it nighttime. I was invited to the Search for Truth channel, and I was invited up on the panel. And that's really the first time I really had my voice as far as the internet goes, and other than, you know, on Facebook. Okay, Lily, good to see you here. Andrew, good to see you. And again, happy Veterans Day, everyone. Happy Veterans Day, man. I had a lot of good memories in the Air Force when I served active duty, a little over 21 years. A lot of good memories and I have to say, a lot of hard times, things that I wasn't used to in a civilian world, and having to adapt being in the military there. That's a photograph of me in basic training. I'd either just turned 18 or I was still 17 years old at the time. But yeah, thank you, everyone. Um, yeah, thank you, everyone, for the Veteran Days wishes. And, you know, I kind of don't like to make it look like I'm so old that, I can't talk about when I retired, but it's been going on 24 years now. 24 years. My math is correct. Yep, and it is. This is 2025. I retired from active duty at the end of 2001, so 24 years ago. Um, at the end of this year, before the end of this year, should say. Correct myself here, but just subbed. Uh, oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Lily, for the sub. I appreciate it. I was sitting there. I haven't looked at the subs because they deplatformed me. Let's see, a few years back. I think it was like a couple days. We went to Mar-a-Lago, the Search for Truth, and we say Ms. RH, and basically after that we did a live stream there, and it was after that they basically deplatformed me on YouTube, and the channel never really came back to its former amount of subscriber or viewers, I should say. And I was one of the live streams I did before they deplatformed me, I had like over 4,000 views, and I was getting up there where I could be monetized if I wanted to. But anyways, it worked out the way it worked out. And thank you for the sub, Lily, again. See, Tanya, great to see you here. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate those words there. But and being a good mod, all this time. I mean, we really haven't had to have a mod after all these. I say all these years. 2 or 3 years. I can't kind of like lost track of how long it was when I was deplatformed off of YouTube. Now I don't know. Some people in this community may or may not remember Shane Phelps, but Shane Phelps, basically the late Shane Phelps, I should say. We call him Mr. Finger. There's a joke about that. it's a humorous joke that Shane liked too as well. But he helped me get over 100 followers over on Rumble, so I could start doing live streams on Rumble and not worrying about YouTube because they deplatform me. So a lot of things for the community back in those times, and God, it kind of seems like so far away for some reason. Yeah, thank you, Wally. Appreciate it. So I'm trying to get up a little bit more views here. Now, StreamYard does just realign their live stream. The technical aspects of it. So I haven't gotten around this yet to figure out. Like for example, I have like a split screen. I guess I can. I don't know if I can view Rumble on this one. What do you call that? Visual display I have. I don't really know. Yeah, Captain Finger. Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Appreciate it. So I on Veterans Day night. It was nighttime. I was in the chat and I was watching Liberty Warrior Nation. I think that LWN, I believe it was Liberty Warrior, and I saw the Search for Truth go up on the panel, or he called in, whatever, and he invited everybody over to his channel for Veterans Day night, and he actually put me up on the panel, and that's like the first start I got, and I appreciate everybody for your support that have stuck around all this time. Even after they deplatformed me and I went over to Rumble. So I appreciate it. And I'm going to be concentrating on chat tonight. We're not going to talk about politics, nothing like that. We're just going to basically thank all the veterans out there, and especially those that gave the ultimate sacrifice. Hey, Ken, I'm glad to see you here. Yeah, I'm gonna focus on chat tonight, see if we get some other veterans coming in tonight, and would like to wish them a very happy Veterans Day. Also, we have to basically include it with the veterans is their families. Like for example, my family, I left at 17 years old. I mean, I was still a kid, and kind of immature for a 17-year-old going into the Air Force. I had a little bit of problem. I like to cut up sometimes, I guess some people could call it play a fool. I don't know. I don't think I was playing a fool. I just like to lighten things up a little bit, making a few jokes, and what I mean. But it's a lot of people. I'm going to say a lot of people, but there was a few people, a certain percentage of people that didn't make it through basic training, and they were basically sent back home on a bus. For those people, my heart goes out to them. And the certain people that couldn't get in because they couldn't pass the physical, right, to get in. And I remember hearing that from people that I knew. I think I knew one of those individuals, but he was flat-footed, but he could run just as good as any of us could run, but I wouldn't even known that he was flat-footed until he told me, and that kind of thing. So there's people that didn't get in, and they wanted to go in really bad and serve our country. For them, hey, at least thanks for trying. Thank you for trying. That would be a shock, but I had something to fall back on if I wasn't accepted by the military, but even at, hey, Daniel, good to see you here. Good to see you here. Yeah, so tonight I'm just going to kind of like focus on watching people coming in and out. I shared the link on a couple of social media platforms, including one that I'm on, mainly family type members, but everyone's welcome. And I have members of my family that were in the military. I got cousins that were in the military, served United States Navy. I have an uncle that served in the United States Navy. My dad served in the United States Navy, and he actually, one of those tours he took, if you notice, if you came in, if you're over on Rumble and you watched the place card holder video before the live stream started, I have basically a short clip of Admiral Byrd, basically, and him talking about Antarctica, and his travels there and how important it was for us to basically establish a base there and all that stuff. It goes back all the way to, I think it was 1947 to Operation High Jump. It might have gone back further than that as far as Admiral Byrd is concerned. But yeah, happy Tuesday there for you. Also, Daniel, appreciate you coming in. Yeah, and thank everyone for their service that served our country. Now, let's see. Going back to Antarctica, my dad served, volunteered to go to Antarctica, and they took him. A guy from Tampa, Florida. I mean, my dad, he went all the way to Antarctica. He took part in Operation Deep Freeze. Now, Operation Deep Freeze, when he took part of it, it was like right before 1960, around that time frame, and he was in charge of the dogs, and basically, because he had mountain climbing experience, I think in New Zealand and other places. Okay, Ken, I see. Yeah, if you see anything come up, please share it. I noticed that I wasn't going to talk about politics tonight, but I do want to say there's 30 subpoenas went out there. I think Bongino. So that's basically all I'll talk about, and we know what's going on, and we know who's behind it, trying to basically hurt Americans, that are here in the right way. So, but anyways, that's all I'll say about that. But yeah, I had a lot of great experiences in the military, but it was hard going for some of us for a while. So wow, that big banner popped up. That's cool. Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that banner on Rumble. Go back to YouTube real quick. Yeah, I have to realign YouTube. I don't have it set up properly, I don't think. So, but anyways. So again, going back to my dad, his experience with Antarctica, I know there's a lot of talk out there in the kind of like, you can call it sci-fi. For some people, they believe it's sci-fi. I do believe because of the pyramids and stuff like that, there's a lot to what some people believe, and I wouldn't discount them that easy. Let's just say that. I will also talk about something that was found during the Cuban Missile Crisis that we basically concealed as a government and as a military. I'll talk about that tonight. But getting back to Operation Desert, no, Operation Deep Freeze. Now that was the Operation Deep Freeze was the largest scientific expedition in the history of the world. It to this day, it's still the largest scientific expedition in the history of the world. Like I said, my dad in the U.S. Navy, he volunteered to go, and he spent 2 tours in Antarctica, and I believe they were there for 3 or 4 months, maybe total, maybe less. But anyways, because of his mountain climbing experience, and he led the sled team. Back then, they didn't have those what do you call those like tractors or vehicles that could drive in the snow or whatever. They didn't have those yet, so they didn't acquire that until I think after Dad did 2 of those tours, and for his Operation Deep Freeze concerned. But anyways, they heard about his mountain climbing experience, and the captain of the Why Not, USS Why Not, basically asked my dad if he could basically be the guide to go up the top of Mount Erebus. So my dad basically volunteered for that, and they basically got up to about the summit, not the summit, but the base of Mount Erebus. And for people that do know or do not know Mount Erebus, it wasn't an active volcano, but it wasn't a dormant volcano either. So basically, Dad was going to lead the captain and an AP reporter and a Caltech geologist up to the top of Mount Erebus for to be part of the scientific, um, expedition or mission. And basically, when the captain and the AP reporter got up to about the base height, the captain had to say, well, basically, I got to turn back. So the captain turned back, right, and he took the AP reporter along with him. And Dad continued up the top of the Mount Erebus with the Caltech geologists to the summit. On the way up to the top of Mount Erebus, they encountered an Arctic storm. And basically, Dad, with his mountain climbing experience, he basically was able to spike in the tent pegs into the side of a ridge on the side of Mount Erebus and ride out the storm. Now, after the storm subsided, they basically sent out a search team looking for, my dad and the Caltech geologists, and there's no sign of them. So they basically ended when they ended the search to try to find the remains or looking for, their bodies or if they're still alive or not. They called off the search party, and they're about to telegram or whatever, send a messenger to the loved ones, that they perished climbing to the top of Mount Erebus. But anyways, about that time, right after they basically called off the search party, it was the captain that basically spotted my dad and the Caltech geologist coming down to basically to the base level of Mount Erebus, and then they sent out a team to get them. And so, that was something. That was an ordeal. And people that understand the Arctic storms down in Antarctica, that's no light feat. You know what I mean? That's a heck of a feat to be able to do that. And their mission to go to the summit to get geological samples for that Caltech geologist, they were successful. He was able to retrieve the samples up there at the top of the basically a volcano, Mount Erebus, and bring them back and take direct part in that scientific expedition. And that was a successful mission. Nobody lost their lives or anything like that. If that would have happened, I wasn't thought of yet, so I wouldn't even be around. So anyways, I like to share that story. Now, I have another uncle that served in the U.S. Navy that was in the Battle of Midway, and his ship, the USS Vincennes, was actually sunk during World War II by Imperial Japanese fleet. Basically, they call it the Battle of the Five Sitting Ducks, and I won't go into why they call it that, but I'll just say at the time, Admiral McCain, the grandfather, I believe it was, of John McCain, was the captain of the aircraft carrier that was supposed to be conducting the surveillance operations for the landing of the Solomon Islands. But from what I understand, the aircraft carrier left that area, and they couldn't conduct surveillance, or I mean, not aerial surveillance of the area, so that Japanese Imperial fleet was undetected, and they got the jump on the U.S. Navy, and there was actually uh, the Australian Navy ships too as well. I think they were destroyers. I can't remember exactly, but anyways, there's I believe two Australian ships were sunk too as well. They call it the Battle of the Five Sitting Ducks because there was five ships that were sunk by the Japanese Imperial fleet. Now to give to be full disclosure type. Now back then, I'm pretty sure they couldn't fly aerial surveillance operations at nighttime off a carrier. I think it was too dangerous at that time, but I could be wrong. So I have to do a little bit more research on that, as far as that is concerned. And that's let's see if I'm forgetting somebody. But if you got anybody's got any thing you want to say about your family members serving, if you want to say, put it in the chat on YouTube, what branch of service they served in, and put it in the chat. If it's like one of your parents or your cousins, I'll put it up on the screen, and thank you for their service as well. Now, I know the gratitude we have for the most gratitude we have for veterans are those that gave their ultimate sacrifice, right? The ultimate sacrifice serving our country, which means they perished in combat or in the line of duty, and of course we have to think about those, and our heart and prayers goes out to those that lost loved ones in any of these wars, so, or even while there wasn't a war, there's a lot of people that passed away while on active duty that wasn't involved in a combat zone or whatever, or a regional zone, however you want to describe it, but they are still serving our country when they perished, right? So, a lot of these assignments, we would never been in certain locations if it wasn't for our service to our country, right? So, so that's basically, that's kind of common sense, So let's see here. And again, we keep going back and forth from about 8 viewers to down. Let me see how many people's over on Rumble. For those that are on Rumble, apologize for not basically viewing the Rumble chat is that much. Let's see here. Now, what I was going to talk about, and I'm just going to kind of stay in here for a while and keep this live stream going in case there's other veterans. There's Navy vet, I think, in here. There's a lot of people that were in the military when I first started live streaming. So I'd like to see some of those individuals here as well. Like we have Jeff B. and let's see. He's Navy man. from what I remember. Pappy Two Bears. I don't know how many people remember Pappy Two Bears. Basically, he has a problem with his phone and his camera and mic or something like that, so he can't come on the basically the panel tonight. But I was going to invite him on and allow him to give a summary of his service, because he's got a really um, he's been around about 10 years longer than I have, so he's got a lot of really neat experiences I like to hear about, and I even like to hear those experiences repeated, even if it's over and over again. I really value other people's service as well, so um, let me see. I got to click on live here. So it says I'm the only one on Rumble. Pretty sure, because Rumble is when I view Rumble on my other display, I'm a basically a viewer too as well. So that if there's only one person viewing, that's me. So wow, it's crazy. Go back to YouTube again real quick. So if y'all want to put yeah, and I said I wasn't going to get into politics, but thank God it looks like they're going to end the shutdown. So our veterans, our active duty military and reserve people, and National Guard, whatever, they can start getting paid, you know. So thank God for that. And the air traffic control, ATC, we call it. Let's see here. Let's see here. And one great experience I had when I was in the Air Force. Um, One thing I really liked, there was very few gray areas. We knew what we had to do, right? We all had to have a mission statement posted, you know, somewhere in the facility where we worked at. There was always, it's normally around where the first sergeant and the commander's offices are, and they would have posted our mission statement. So I like when they started going to that. Now they quality workforce, that was General McPeak in the Air Force, and far as quality work processes and understanding our customer, of course, as the U.S. taxpayer, what what our main mission is, and basically being focused on that. So um, I like the changes. Like I said, there were very few gray areas that we had to encounter. The only time where we really had any type of gray areas is if the commander wasn't around, or, the deputy commander or the first sergeant maybe wasn't around. And there was kind of like a little bit of confusion as far as down the chain of command goes, as far as what we should be doing at any certain time frame, right? So what we need to get on to next or whatever as part of the mission, where we're at, and getting not having the proper briefings because individuals are gone wherever they had to basically go to a meeting or whatever, that kind of thing, or some type of classified briefing, and some of those briefings last hours, hours. We got the planning stage, and, you got the offensive and defensive planning stages and all that kind of thing. So sometimes we have to basically understand to go ahead and run things the way we are trained. And that didn't come up very often. That didn't come up very often. So that was one of the things I did like about the Air Force. And, if you didn't do what we're supposed to do, they'd see you out the door. Sometimes they wouldn't see you out the door. They just tell you know where the door is, right? Bye. That's it. That's the way it is in the military sometimes. If you're doing up to doing things, they say, let's see, zero tolerance, for example, zero tolerance on certain things. I won't get into it, but we know if we delved into those zero tolerance type topics and we were active in those zero tolerance type, we can say this openly, like drugs, like, illegal drugs, you know what I mean? So that was one of those things. Okay. Actually having fights amongst ourselves, those were one of those zero tolerance areas, that they had. They'll put you out, especially if you hurt someone. Your days in the military are over. So we all had to work as a team. So, and another thing I liked about it is there wasn't like arguments. Now, sometimes there's certain people that had, or individuals, whatever, that had found out a better way to do things. And sometimes, you try to explain that to your boss or whatever in the military, that try to escalate it up the chain of command, and they'd shut you down, whatever. You'd have to just suck it up, whatever, and just go on about your business and do it the way they want to, right? So, and there's, for those that could not adapt to the military life, uh, they pretty much had to let go, So mainly that was they called that administrative discharge, unable to adapt to the military life. So, like I said, everything was uniform. We all knew what we had to do. And basic training, we were not co-ed. So, basically, if there's any type of feminine type things that, they were allowed certain, like a temporary leave or whatever, that kind of thing. Of course, as men, we didn't need to do that, right? So we knew exactly what we had to do, almost like I would say 99% of the time, unless an individual, the only people that didn't know exactly what to do are those that haven't been trained yet. But far as individuals that are in the military, that served in the military, went through basic training, went through tech school, and went to their first duty stations, and they served, and they, even if they only served 3 years or 4 years or whatever, they finished up one tour of active duty and they got a honorable discharge. Those people should be well sought after. I'm going to say that the scourge that certain drugs have placed on our society, uh, the private sector, like for example, certain type of drugs. Now, I'm not judging people, right? I'm not perfect myself, but when you're out there in a private sector, and say, for example, you're doing illegal drugs like fentanyl or methamphetamines, you can't be in your civilian work sector. You can't be calling that in to the boss because you're 3 days you're geeking and you're working a million miles an hour, and sometimes you gotta a temper, right? And that temper flares up, and workplaces can't basically risk that. You know what I mean? Especially calling out because you're zooming whatever, you're geeking for 3 days straight. You're up 3 days straight, and then you have to sleep 3 days, right? So I think there's a lot of us out there that have experience with either friends or hearsay of other people that have been involved in certain types of drugs like that. You know, and they can't make that. They really can't hold a job. I don't know very many. I know that they had in the military a small percentage of working alcoholics, right? Functional alcoholics, where they can actually drink, but and then go to work, and you can't really tell. And a lot of them kind of like mask their they would do things to try to mask their breath or whatever, so they won't reek of alcohol, right? But a lot of those people, they work for years, and some of them were caught later on after they really started cracking down on and being having zero tolerance for certain types of things. You know, if you're if you basically they tell you go get drug tested, it's on the spot. Sometimes they got somebody that shows up from the clinic, whatever, with those vials or those little cups, and they'll go into the bathroom with you and watch you urinate into the cup, and they'll take it back. And you if they come individual comes up positive, okay, they're out, they're gone. And that really started happening, I think it was in the early 80s or late 80s, maybe even the 90s, when these two pilots basically crashed their fighter jet aircraft in the side of a carrier. I think it was either two pilots or two planes or whatever. But after that happened, once they retrieved the bodies and they found THC in their blood system, when they did the autopsy, um, that started. Even though I'm pretty sure that was in the Navy. Those are Navy um, aviators, they call them. That crashed in the side of that carrier uh, that had the THC. They also that made that basically the zero tolerance. It started coming up, and our commanders were and first sergeants were warning us. Listen, you're going to start being no notice drug test. So if you're taking part of any of that stuff, it was kind of like the Vietnam transition era, if you will. So they realized some of that stuff was going on, right? So they basically said, listen, we're going to start doing no notice drug testing, right? And sure enough, they did and started catching people. And there was a lot of people, we call them the barracks lawyers or whatever, that said, okay, they were trying to tell people, well, you can mask the THC from coming positive if you drink like a quart of orange juice or something like that. You know what I mean? Seemed like those were the ones that were first kicked out of the Air Force, out of the military or whatever. Yeah, thank you, Ken, for that comment. I appreciate it. Ken Zoe. So let's see here. I'm trying to see the link, and I can't remember how to do the link anymore. to come up on the panel. I used to know how to do all this stuff. Okay, okay, I found it. Let me see. I'm going to put out a couple of invites out there. See if we can get anybody to come in. Uh, Stand by. We had a guy that went by Finding Freedom, and he was talking about joining the Air Force. I do believe I saw the chevron. I do believe he's in the Air Force now, and I kind of like um, told him I think, far as my opinion, I believe the Air Force is the best branch to go into, as far as what he was interested in. Uh, so see if I can get him on stage again. Pappy Two Bears can't come on the stage tonight because he on the panel tonight because his camera and his mic isn't working. So stand by. Okay, I put out the couple of invites for people to join. Let me see. I'm gonna send out a couple more invites. Stand by for people that are here. Uh, I'll be back.
Devil dog, I remember. You got two RHs up there.
I don't know how that happened.
You did that. Stop it.
Wow.
They probably can't stop it. I'm so just waiting. Oh, wow.
I don't know why it did that, but now it got back to the right. See, it took let me see. I don't think testing 1 2 testing 1 2. I got to check Rumble. Might have lost Rumble. Testing 1 2 testing 1 2. See, what happened was when I went out to basically find people that wanted to join up on the panel, I was out too long, and I had to refresh the live stream again. So I don't think I lost anything. Let me go over to Rumble, see if we're still live over there. So testing 1 2 Rumble, testing 1 2 Rumble. There's a delay on Rumble. Yeah, so the live is still going on both YouTube and Rumble. I have a lot of friends on my social media page, whatever, that they don't really come into they don't I don't think they're knowledgeable about live streams and understanding this is kind of like a kind of cool open community like forum for people to come in and say hello, even if they didn't join the military, but that they know have experience of a loved one like a dad or uncle or brother or sister serving in the military. Yeah, we like to hear y'all's story too, you know what I mean? So we're all we're all part of the same community for our country, you know. Let's see here. And there might be other live streams going on simultaneously. People in this community are on other live streams, and I can understand that as well. Let me see. I'm going to get a link again real quick. Okay, I just sent out a couple more invites, so hopefully that will take off and people understand. There's a lot of people that don't do live streams. They don't follow YouTube channels or nothing like that. They got their own like routine, as you will on these holidays, and they're out with family doing stuff like that. And I understand it. Also, we're on the Eastern Standard or East Coast time zone, so it's already 8:09 p.m. here where I'm at in Central Florida or in Florida. Um, and in a couple hours difference, it's only like 6 o'clock in the evening, and a lot of people getting home from work on the West Coast, right? So in Texas is 1 hour, so it's like seven. Yeah, it's 10 after 8 here East Coast time. So, but I'm talking about the West Coast time. They're 2 hours behind. They're like 6:10 p.m. and maybe 7:10 p.m. in Texas. I think there's a dividing marker. I can't remember. Um, I think they're just an hour behind us. So, anyways, that could be causing some of the where people are basically. And a lot of people have to work on Veterans Day, right? So I do know if you're a grocery store, like Publix was open today. A lot of people had to work. If you're in a federal job, like of course you're active duty, unless there's a requirement you have to work on Veterans Day or any other holiday like Christmas, Thanksgiving, or whatever. You have to work. I worked on many holidays, and since I wasn't married, I would volunteer to work, or I was picked whether I wanted to volunteer or not to work during the holidays. And I understood that, and sometimes I wanted to go out and get together with friends or whatever, and I couldn't because I had to work, in the military. So, but anyways, that's part of the service, and there's a lot of people out there in the civilian sector that have to do the same thing. They have to work even on the holidays. Um, you know, have to keep the ball rolling. So, um, again, thank you for the people that did show up tonight. I'm going to stay in here as long as I can. There's some things I have to get done tomorrow, so I got a long day ahead of me tomorrow. So, anyways, um, let's see here. I'm going to switch back and forth and head over to Rumble. Check Rumble out. Well, what in the world? A lot of people probably don't know my age group. They probably don't even know how to post a chat, and what I mean. If they, but there's some out there that's more tech savvy than myself, so I can't really stereotype all my friends and family members. Let's see. So on Rumble, I don't know if YouTube probably tracks this as well. Let me go check this out. The go to dashboard. Okay, so let's give a kind of like a little overview of my activity after they deplatform me on YouTube, my all-time earnings for Rumble and doing all these live streams on Rumble is only $54.75. That's because I didn't become really monetized. I didn't get a sponsor, but I've had a couple people that donated to this channel over on Rumble at area 111 without the space. It's got a blue avatar with a capital letter A, white capital letter A in the avatar. That's my channel. There's another one. And look at the followers, right? Make sure you click on the one that has 319 followers instead of the one that only has one follower. Okay. So all-time views, that's the total amount of views that since I've been on Rumble, 97,890 views total. So that's 97,890 views since I started Rumble. So just give you all a little bit of overview as far as that concerned is. Go back to my channel. Okay, so just three individuals on Rumble now. I lost the chat on Rumble when I said welcome everybody. So the difference between the channel name when you're looking up this channel on Rumble and YouTube is area space 111. So there's a space between area and 111. Now a Rumble and True Social, my profile of True Social and my channel on Rumble is area 111 without the space. And again, the avatar photograph or picture for my channel on Rumble is a capital letter A, white capital letter A with a blue background. Now, like I said, there's another channel out there called Area 111, but they only have one subscriber. I have 319 so far on Rumble. Okay, so stick in here. I'm just thinking about what to say. Any other topics that come up to mind as far as the military goes? They come to mind. Oh yes, I did want to talk about the. I talked about this when I first started the live stream tonight. I did want to talk about a covert activity the United States Navy and United States Armed Forces were involved in during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, submarines were conducting, I think, a routine like surveillance, right? Kind of like patrolling the area. which would be considered around the Bermuda Triangle area. Now, so during those basically those patrolling off the coast of Cuba in what's considered the Bermuda Triangle, the Navy sub came in contact with a underwater, I should say, huge pyramid, and they had to report that finding to up the chain of command, and basically there was talk about it at first, chatter about the finding that, and basically they clamped down on any communications so it wouldn't get out to the public. And basically, in my opinion, I'm gonna have to do something real quick and fact check myself before I say something that's incorrect. They basically put a we call it a naval blockade around that find. So I'm going to look up. I'm going to fact check myself something so I don't say something that's. The only thing I know about that operation when they found that giant pyramid underwater off the coast of Cuba, and they basically invoked a naval blockade around that area. That was during the Cuban Missile Crisis era. I think that was in 1962, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here. Now, so before I say anything and make any false statements, I'm going to look up this. So now Guantanamo Bay detention camp was first opened January 11th of 2002 by President George W. Bush in response to the September 11th attacks. Okay, so but there is, let's see, hold on a second. They're not going to talk much about this at all, and you got to kind of like search around. Stand by. Have to be very specific. Okay, so there is a Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center. The main AUTEC support base and downrange tracking stations are on Andros Island in the Bahamas, just west of Nassau, about 180 nautical miles southwest of West Palm Beach, Florida. So Now, the typical task performed by the Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center is uh, testing and certifying the proficiency of U.S. Navy submarine captains and their crews, as well as the accuracy of their undersea weapons. The sophisticated facility includes 3 test ranges. Hold on a second. Okay, hold on a second. The weapons range, the acoustic range, and the thorax range, all located in the tongue of the ocean. A deep ocean basin approximately 100 nautical miles long by 15 nautical miles wide, with depths as great as 6,000 feet. The main Altec support base and downrange tracking stations are on Andros Island in the Bahamas, just west of Nassau, about 180 miles southeast of West Palm Beach, Florida. On January 23rd, 2020, the corporation PAE Applied Technologies received roughly $32.9 million for 6 more months of facility range maintenance and range operations. I won't go into this any further, but if they created a submarine base or a top secret like naval facility, it would be in that area so they can continue to conduct surveillance to make sure that there's possibly no what do you call it? Hold on a second. Where? Here we go. Let me get back to the live stream again real quick before I lose it again. So if they did create a naval base basically to safeguard any other country, maybe a hostile type country, hostile to America, as far as that goes, they made those bases and the way their activities could be, highly classified, and we wouldn't know about them. So, you can find and you can do a Google search about that finding, and there's a couple of geologists or scientists that basically talked about it for a little bit, but they basically shut down all public communications as far as that operation is concerned. And we call it the Bermuda Triangle area. So, anyways, get back here and look at this. Okay, so it appears we may not get any new people coming into the chat to say hello, and maybe they're busy with other functions and that kind of thing for celebrating Veterans Day with family members that served, or that kind of thing. So I understand that. But anyways, thank you for the people that did show up. I'm going to stick around just for a little bit and see what's going on. If there's any breaking news going on. Now, I said I wasn't going to talk about politics, but from my understood, it's not really politics. It's they put out 30 subpoenas, and that list, if you can go do basically 30 subpoena, I think those subpoenas went out today. That's quite a few subpoenas, right? So hold on a second. See if there's any breaking news here. So 22 states to see aurora tonight. Let's see here. "22 states to see aurora tonight as rare cannibal CME strikes Earth. Northern lights may be visible in the U.S. overnight on Tuesday, November 11th through Wednesday, November 12th, with a strong G3 geomagnetic storm being forecast by space weather experts at NOAA. Okay. I don't see any breaking news popping up anywhere. Hey, Nurse Julie, good to see you here. Long time. Been a long time. Well, you changed your. Yeah. Ms. Area 111, Ms. RH, she had a stroke on September 1st, and she's getting better now. So, but we thank everybody for praying out there for her speedy recovery. So that's happened since she's been gone. So it's you're up in the Great Northwest Territory, I guess. It's only about 6:30 there tonight, 6:30 p.m. Augie dog. Good to see you here. I just wanted to do a show for Veterans Day and talk a little bit about all those that served in my family and others around the world, and wish them all well. Yeah, she's getting better. It was really scary at the first. It was really, her blood pressure got up to like 120 over, what was it? 220 over 113. And her mother rushed. I got her mother to come over here. She rushed over here and took her blood pressure when she couldn't walk, and basically saw her blood pressure was that high, sky high, and she got her to take her blood pressure medication, calmed her down, and then the next day they had to take her to the emergency room because she still couldn't walk. So thought she was going to pull through it, where she wouldn't have to go to it, but her mother took her the next day. So her mother's been helping her with her health problems since she's born. So she knows a whole lot more about her than I do, as far as health wise goes. Yeah, I I began to wash dishes, and people that know me for a while, they know how much I hate washing dishes, but and getting used to it, it's kind of like a routine now, right? So, and of course, help her out until she can get up on her feet on her own again, and she can't drive. So, yeah, it's been a little struggle, and I appreciate all the prayers because prayers do work, believe me. So, yeah, put anything with cats to do with it, and they'll cheer her up. But sitting there waiting around, see if anybody grabs that link I shared a couple times. Yeah, my sister just left back to Arizona. I think it was early. Was that early yesterday morning? My days and nights. Monday, like 4 in the morning. Did you see that? You know how to text her, right? if you want to text me, Nurse Julie, just text me to that number so I can remember, make sure I got it still on my phone. I'm pretty sure I don't delete phone numbers, on my contact list, so you should still be there if I'm able to text you. Let's see. I've been at it 1 hour and 26 minutes. Nearly lost the live stream because I was going to share the link to the live stream, and I got back, had to refresh real quick. I almost lost both live streams, but we're still here. Let's see where we're at on YouTube. I've lost a couple people. Well, looks like Rumble's the most active now. Okay, yeah, definitely want to keep in touch. My sister's way over in Arizona, so I can't remember how far she is away from the border between Arizona and California. I know you're not there anymore, though. Let's see here. I'm by the Air Force Base. Oh, up in Washington State, right? Oh, I didn't catch Wally there. Is that McCord Air Force Base you're close by? They call it Lewis, Joint Base Lewis McCord, right? Yeah, I was stationed at McCord Air Force Base in Tacoma, Washington. It's about 20 minutes from Seattle. That was my first duty station, permanent change of station. By oh, everything. Not really much going on now since my sister left. You know, I got there's a lot of things I got to do tomorrow. So Fairchild by Idaho, right on the border of Washington State and Idaho, right? Can you go on the base, or can you got any like where you can go on the base or anything, or just maybe go to an air show or whatever when they have those? Oh, let's see here. Hold on a second.
Hello.
Hey, Finding Freedom.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. It's been a
Hey,
while.
you're live. I'm gonna switch from Rumble back over to YouTube so I can, you know, so we can get this started. I'm glad you came in, Finding Freedom. So I see a chevron on your page there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I just put
are
that. I just put that there. Like, I just needed a new, different picture. So I just, yeah, I
yeah,
know the Air Force logo there. I just needed something. I thought, okay, that's probably a, symbol of freedom, I guess. That's what we need. That's what we need right now. And based on everything that's going on, um, so it's good to be on your show again. I'm just, we haven't. I know it's been a while, but I always enjoy coming on your panel. You're always fair. And yeah, love to talk about what's going on in the world. And
yeah. Let me see. Let me get this YouTube refreshed, and there you are. There, you're on the screen. Now I'm going to mute my mic and just say hello to the community here and give us a quick background again where you're at now.
so I'm still, still live in the New York area, I guess you can say. So still around. I'm still same area. Nothing's really changed. Working just I work full-time job, and yeah, just I met Randy on what's his name, Search for the Truth, or Travis's. I haven't spoken to him in a long time either. I met him. I think we met on your channel, and yeah, I came on. We just started talking about things that are going on in the world, like with regards to Syria and Ukraine, and our current foreign policy, which has destabilized the world, and other things that are going on, and yeah, so we just had a correspondence ever since. That's nothing special, there's nothing special about me. I'm just another person, just want to help wake people up, get people to a better understanding, and make a difference in the world. Because I always say, I tell people your voice matters. One thing is always important: your voice matters. So what's his, I think it was one of our founding fathers, was it Thomas Paine? He said the only way for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. So just like during the American Revolutionary War, we needed to, it was all started with protests, just with the British, with the Stamp Act in 1765, and it was people protesting. It was in Massachusetts. Thomas Hutchinson's house was his house. The governor of Massachusetts' home was burned, and then eventually, British had to remove the tax on sugar, and then, there was the Boston Massacre, and then eventually British decided to remove all taxes except the tax on tea, but the Americans said no, we had enough, and then there was a Boston Tea Party in 1774. Then it was after the Intolerable Acts, where the Massachusetts charter was taken away. All the people participating in the Boston Tea Party had to pay for all the tea that was lost. The Boston Harbor was closed, and the British Crown was put in control of the area of the state of Massachusetts. And after that, it was too late. The people of Massachusetts said enough is enough. Then Lexington Concord happened, April 1775, and that's what started our nation. And we got to make sure we keep that. We got to keep what we have. because right now we are being stripped. We're being stripped away of every right that we have. They're trying to strip us of our Second Amendment rights, and without the Second Amendment, we lose the First Amendment rights. People are getting censored for having certain opinions. They always try to. I think we're all clear. We don't hate anyone. We respect everyone here as God's children, but if you have certain opinions about certain topics, you're labeled as, they love to label you as a racist or, an anti-Semite, Islamophobe, homophobe, all those labels, and close you down. And we got to stand up for that. We cannot be, the First Amendment is clear that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the freedom of the press or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. That's our First Amendment rights. So if we have a certain opinion or we want to post, we want to talk, because, YouTube is a platform. It's just like a news, internet did not exist back then, but, us coming on YouTube and expressing our opinion is it's our freedom of press to say what we feel is right. And right now we are being stripped of that really fast. And our second amendment is that was a well-regulated militia being necessary for a free state. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. I'm not quoting it. I don't know if I'm getting it exactly right.
But you're doing a good job at it. Now, I think would be a good transition time to talk about what happened 405 years ago today, if I may. And I'll read the Mayflower Compact. This is basically proofs for anybody out there that doesn't believe that this is a nation founded on Judeo-Christianity. If you go back to the very first original colony that King James chartered, basically, it's in the Mayflower Compact. I'm going to go ahead and read the text of the Mayflower Compact. In the name of God, amen. We whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord, King James, by the grace of God of Great Britain, France, Ireland, King, defender of the faith, etc., having undertaken for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith and honor of our king and country, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do by these present solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another, covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic for our better ordering and preservation and furtherance of the ends aforesaid, and by virtue hereof to enact, constitute, and frame such just and equal laws, ordinances, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time as shall be thought most meet and convenient for the general good of the colony, unto which we promise all due submission and obedience. In witness whereof we have hereunder subscribed our names at Cape Cod, the 11th of November, in the year of the reign of Sovereign Lord King James of England, France, and Ireland, the 18th, and of Scotland, the 54th, Anno Domini 1620. So on November 11th of 405 years ago, they established the first colony at Cape Cod. Okay, that was the beginning of the first original colony of the 13 colonies who ended up being the first original 13 states in our union. So that's how our country was founded. And by the way, King James wasn't King George. Oh, King George, the grievances and the reason why they fought the Revolutionary Wars because of the grievances that in the Declaration of Independence is written there, and anybody can read. There's a lot of people, when they read the Declaration of Independence, they only go to like certain popular sections of the Declaration of Independence, but they leave out a lot of more important information. And if you see, I wasn't going to get into politics tonight per se, but if you look at some of the grievances we had during what I call the Biden third term, you can see a lot of them match almost identically to the grievances they had before the Revolutionary War began, and the reason why they had the need to fight that war. And that's what gave us our independence. Okay, so, okay, now Finding Freedom has a very, he's like an encyclopedia as far as history and everything goes. I was really amazed because of our age difference. And this proves there's a lot of young people out there that are just like us, and they're more common to be just like us than we actually realize, because when we're part of the psychological warfare operation, they always kind of like present that there's more of them than there are of us. If we get to common ground about things like family orientated like common ground, and we start coming together, once we seek the common ground together, we're going to find out that there's actually a whole lot more of us than there are of them. So, with that said, I'm going to turn it back over to you again, Finding Freedom. If there's anything else you can add to that, you're welcome.
No, like, you mentioned the Obama and Biden terms, how, yes, a lot of grievances we had in the, in back in from 1765 to 1775 preceding the revolution. I mean, Obama and Biden were like really the first, because they're the ones who really started pushing the stripping of our Second Amendment, or right to bear arms. And the right to bear arms is not, people will say it was put there for for survival. It was, the reason it was put there, the whole point of the Second Amendment is that we put a check on the government, on the centralized, because people have to look at it. After we won the Revolutionary War, people were skeptical of having a centralized government. People thought, even when George Washington won the Battle of Yorktown, some people in his close to him were demanding that he be king. And that's typically has always been, like, historically, it's always been the case, where it's usually the general who leads to the overthrow of a leader becomes the next leader in line. But George Washington knew that's not what he wanted. That's not what was best for America. And after that, after we signed the Declaration, after the treaty, not the Declaration, the Treaty of Paris was ratified in 1783, America was there was no United States. I mean, we were just a loose confederation of states. Each state had their own governorship. The Continental Congress was dissolved after the Revolutionary War, but after that, the country started falling apart. There was, I think there was what is it, Shays Rebellion, I believe, happened, which was over due to tax, which was I think it was due to, they were protesting high taxes that they felt like were unconstitutionally leveled against them. So, there was no centralized government. There was no Washington, D.C. And it was after that when people realized, there needs to be some sort of centralized government, because, the Continental Army was dissolved after that, and each state had their own militia. They realized we do need some form of centralized government, but the people were still skeptical. So what we did is we created a republic. We used the French philosopher Montesquieu, his idea of having three separate branches: the legislative, executive, and judicial branch. And we created the Constitution, which was ratified in 1788 by all 13 states. And, it did create a centralized government, a government which does have authority to collect taxes and, raise armies. We did create that, have a postal service, also to promote, have the copyright clause, the authority to coin money. Essentially divide the government in three parts. Congress had certain authority, the presidents had certain authority. But like I said, the reason the reason the Bill of Rights was added to that was to put a check on the government, protect people's freedom of speech, make it clear that even though we have a centralized government, people's freedom of speech, the freedom of right to bear arms, the Third Amendment, people don't think about it as much, but being quartered, because after the revolution, after the Boston Tea Party, one of the intolerable acts was a quartering act, where British soldiers could be quartered, and they could go in anyone's house and say that, no, you're gonna serve me tonight. And it was, people didn't think about that, was to prevent like soldiers from abusing their power. The Fourth Amendment, protecting the right to be secure in our right to privacy, the Fourth Amendment protects our right to be secure in our persons, houses, papers, and efforts against unreasonable searches and seizures that should not be violated. And nowadays that's been torn apart after 9/11, with the passage of the Patriot Act and Obama passing the National Defense Authorization Act in 2012. The FBI and federal law enforcement have the authority to spy on you and raid your house without a warrant. The Fifth Amendment, protecting right to a fair trial, that no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of grand jury. Also protects Fifth Amendment also protects you from double jeopardy, so you're not subject to the same offense twice. Also protects you always have your Fifth Amendment right, which protects that you shall not be compelled in any criminal proceeding to be testify against yourself. The Sixth Amendment protects right to a fair, speedy, and public trial by impartial jury where the crime had been committed. The Seventh Amendment preserves the right to a fair trial, and right to a trial by jury and any where the value of controversies over $20. Eighth Amendment protects against any cruel and unusual punishment, says that excessive bail shall not be acquired, excessive fine shall not be imposed, or nor shall cruel and unusual punishments be inflicted. And then, the Ninth Amendment says that, it's not to deny any other rights which are not presented in the Constitution. There's some rights are not mentioned, but it's not to deny any other rights to the people. And the 10th Amendment says that the powers not delegated in the Constitution shall be left to the states to handle. So, that's an overview of the Bill of Rights. But the whole point was just to create a check on the federal government, make sure that we don't have we don't become a tyrannical system. That's what makes the American system so unique, is that we the people have a check on it. We can, not one branch will have absolute power. It's not going to be like how it was prior to that. Because prior to that, there was no people really govern themselves. I mean, yeah, there was the Roman Senate. There was the Roman Senate, but it still was not like a self-governing like the way we have now. The America was really the first government which was able to govern itself, and that's what we need. We don't want to be like Canada, United Kingdom, where they have a parliamentary system where one party comes into power and they can do whatever they want. So, but we're slowly losing that. And Barack Obama was really the start of, you could say it started under George W. Bush, but it was Obama who really wanted to, before Obama, I don't know if Randy, if you remember, before Obama became president in 2008, he was reading Fareed Zakaria's book about the post-American world or something. So, and if you look at Barack Obama's connections, who mentored Barack Obama? When he was growing up, when he was in Hawaii, his grandparents, they wanted him to be mentored by this man named Frank Marshall Davis. And Frank Marshall Davis, he was a pornography artist, and he was also a member of the Communist Party USA. He felt that people of color, particularly blacks, need to engage in a violent revolution, overthrow the American system, because he said the American.
Can we stop right there for a second? Sure. So I can add to it. So Barack Obama, in case a lot of people don't realize, I wasn't going to get into politics, but we didn't have a big showing for veterans, so I'm going to go ahead and inject some information I think is very important. Barack Obama, in 2014, the same year that they brokered a deal to overthrow Yanukovych in Ukraine, basically which started the war between Ukraine and Russia, because Yanukovych that they overthrew had a peace treaty with Russia. Okay, so when we go on from there, that's the same time that they legalized the use of propaganda and they destroyed our free speech. And this is the reason why we see all these mainstream media outlets reading from the same scripts, and you can go through and watch montages of that, where they're all saying basically the same thing. They'll maybe change one word or two out of the statement, but they're reading the same script. And we keep on going, well, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. That came from Barack Obama, whether people like that accusation or not, right? But through they authored the Smith-Mundt Act in 2014. About the same time, they overthrew the president of Ukraine, and they legalized the use of propaganda on the American people. So this is a main reason why we're seeing a lot of this happen. Also, they formulated at first, remember, they had Acorn freedom. They had Acorn, and it went from Acorn. When Acorn was found out by Project Veritas, undercover journalists, that they were basically creating fraudulent voter registrations, that kind of shined the light on Acorn's operations. So what did they do then? It's like a shell. They got a shell company. They'll move it around. They'll change the name. So what did they create after that? Once that was revealed, they created Organizing for Action. The founders of Organizing for Action was Barack Obama and Eric Holder. Organizing for Action was basically they got about a 30,000 foot soldier army that they could send to each one of these states at basically any time that they communicate with them and have them go there or pay them to go there to be part of these so-called Summer of Love and peaceful protests, right? So that was found out. So they did the shell game again. Where'd they move to next? Obama and Holder put together what's called the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, right? And that basically that coincided with the invasion from January 20th of 2021 to January 20th of 2025 when President Trump took over for his second term. Now, I want to read a couple things. One thing that just came out from the Supreme Court about tariffs, I'm going to go in and explain the justification from the supreme law land, which is the Constitution, that can basically gives the power back to the president and commander-in-chief to basically undo the invasion they had on America soil for 4 years. So this is Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, and it reads, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on the application of the legislature against domestic violence. So the President of the United States, if the local governments fail to keep their people safeguarded or safe on their own streets, if they fail to uphold their constitutional duties in those positions that they serve as governor or mayors or whatever, or even the sheriffs, if they fail to uphold their constitutional oath of office, the President of the United States has all power, the power under Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution to deploy National Guard troops or other military troops to basically stop the violence and stop the killing. And that's what President Trump is doing. So also, let's go to the tariffs. Now, this is a thing that the Supreme Court, President Trump was really upset about this latest Supreme Court ruling that President Trump doesn't have the authority pretty much to implement tariffs. I want to go back to a radio address by President Reagan, okay, to the nation on free and fair trade. Now, I'm not going to read this entire address, but I don't know if you know this or not, if you follow the World Series or not, but Canada put out a propaganda piece ad during the World Series about.
I remember.
Yeah, President
Reagan. They misquoted Reagan.
Right. So this is the radio address that I'm about to read to the nation on free and fair trade. This was dated, and anybody can go look this up. This is at the reaganlibrary.gov archives radio address nation free and fair trade. Okay, so anybody can look this up, can even read along with me. So I'm gonna basically, this is a radio address about the tariff that President Reagan implemented against Japan because they broke their trade agreement far as semiconductors are concerned. So this is the second paragraph of the address of the transcript. As perhaps you've heard, last week I placed new duties on some Japanese products in response to Japan's inability to enforce their trade agreement with us on electronic devices called semiconductors. Now, imposing such tariffs on trade barriers and restrictions of any kind are a step that I am loath to take. And in a moment, I'll mention the sound economic reason for this. that over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. But the Japanese semiconductors were a special case. We had clear evidence that Japanese companies were engaging in unfair trade practices that violated an agreement between Japan and the United States. We expect our trading partners to live up to their agreements. As I've often said, our commitment to free trade is also a commitment to fair trade. So you want to add anything to that, Finding Freedom?
Yeah, well, all I'm saying is I want to go back a little bit. You talk about go back to Obama legalizing propaganda. It's like
Right.
that's
You
when
got
this is
some.
when
You got
this is
some
when
background noise. That's hold on a second. Let me turn my mic.
not my laptop fan, is it?
Yeah, I think it is. I'll turn my mic off in case for that to help. Go ahead.
Still making noise. Okay. Well, what I wanted to say is Barack Obama he was running a campaign of change, right? That's what they were saying. He meant
It's hope,
that was not a
hope.
figure.
Yeah, hope and change.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's the thing, that was not a figure of speech. Look, because like I said, I want to talk about Barack Obama's connections when he was growing up.
Right.
People need.
And
I want. And
you mentioned Frank Marshall Davis. He was a member of the Communist Party USA. Also, I'd like you to touch on Bill Ayers because that's very, very important.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
I
Bill.
do believe this is very, very, really, really important right here, what I'm about to say. And I don't want to take you off track where you're at. But if you go, remember, Bill Ayers was the leader, a socialist leader of the Weather Underground movement, right? They were basically identified as a domestic terrorist group. They set
Yeah,
bombs in the Capitol building and also in the Pentagon, as far as my understanding. My memory serves me correct. But it doesn't stop there. In my opinion, this is an opinion, not an allegation. Everybody's presumed to be innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. I think they're covering up. The main thing that I like to have people look at, and you could probably bring it up right now on your computer, Finding Freedom, because I can't without paying a subscription. Please go to No Regrets for the Love of Explosives, Memoir Assaults of Sorts from
I,
New York
New York
Times,
Times. Yeah,
September 11th, 2001. Now, if you go down that, now see, Bill Ayers planned that, reading that manifesto basically, planned to have that manifesto published on September 11th, 2001, in advance of September 11th, 2001. So I want people to remember socialism or Marxism or communism, their enemy is free trade. Their enemy is capitalism. That's the reason why they chose the trade towers. Now, if you go to the manifesto, it's the Communist Manifesto that was placed in the New York Times. You can see the mirror social, the foreign and domestic policies of Barack Obama in that Communist Manifesto that Bill Ayers placed as a mentor of Obama in the New York Times, planned it in advance. Now, can you go to that article and read it?
I
And I
don't think I
want to,
can. I don't think I can share, but I can
no,
read it.
yeah, read it. Read the article and point out certain things like um, fundamentally transform. Read things like how he's going to basically remember the other Marxist group. They were going to basically disrupt the Western nuclear cell of the family. You're going to find all of that in that Communist Manifesto of Bill Ayers that was placed in the New York Times to voice their grievances against capitalism and our government, right, on September 11th.
Yeah,
That's their, yeah, go ahead.
so Unfortunately, New York Times now they don't let me read stuff for free now. I have to create an account, so I can't log in. I'm unable to access the article. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
it says
I
yeah,
can't. I
it says
can't
create a
either.
free account or log in. Unfortunately, like before I could, but now it's like they've taken that away. So, but yeah, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, you're making a good point about Bill Ayers. That yes, Bill Ayers and his wife Bernadine Dorn. They were part of the Weathermen Underground, which was a communist organization based in Chicago, Illinois, and main thing they were opposing was the Vietnam War, where we were fighting the Viet Cong in Vietnam. We were helping the South Vietnamese fight prevent a communist takeover of South Vietnam, essentially, because after that Vietnam had been divided. Um, after World War II, Vietnam had been divided into. It was 1955. Vietnam was divided into North and South, and the North Vietnamese are saying the Viet Cong to try to take over South Vietnam, and we were just trying to prevent the takeover of communism. Now, I'm not saying that some decisions that during Vietnam were good, but I do think it was a fight. This is just my opinion. I think we were just trying to stop the spread of communism at the time, and these Bernardine Dorn and Bill Ayers, yeah, they were a Marxist organization based in Chicago, and yes, they were guilty of setting off terrorist attacks in the Capitol and at the Pentagon. Remember at
Now,
9/11, first it was the trade towers that were hit. The Pentagon was hit by Flight 77, and Flight United 93, which allegedly crashed in Pennsylvania, was supposed to hit the U.S. Capitol. So, how does Bill Ayers connect to Barack Obama? That's one thing you have to ask. Well, when Barack Obama was running for the Illinois State Senate, he launched his campaign in Bill Ayers' home, and Barack Obama dismissed.
Hyde Park, in Chicago.
Yeah, they were both. So yeah, this was Barack Obama. Sarah Palin said it that Barack Obama launched his political campaign in the house of a domestic terrorist. Like, regardless of what you think about Sarah Palin, it's the truth. That's what made Bill Ayers is the one who propped up Barack Obama, and he described him as his friend. And Barack Obama said at the debate with John McCain that, this is someone who lives in my neighborhood and teaches English. But like I said,
Right.
Barack Obama, I believe they also served on the Woods Fund together in Chicago. So this is one of Barack Obama's key figures who propped him up to be president. And he was a communist. And this on top of his connections to Frank Marshall Davis, who he was mentored by when he was a kid, was another communist. And the other connection, and I would say the third connection people don't really talk about is his connection to, what's his name? Who was that professor at Harvard who created critical race theory?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about,
Derek Bell. That was it.
okay.
Derek Bell, who was a professor at Harvard, and like his whole idea of critical race theory, which essentially blames the white man for causing all the problems in the world. It was really created by this guy named Derek Bell, who was another communist, and Barack Obama thanked at his graduation speak at Harvard Law School. Barack Obama praised Derek Bell. So, like I said, Barack Obama.
Yeah, he was with that other guy. What's his name? Tribe, that basically said the Constitution is a living, breathing document, and they gave them what they believed to the ability to go in there and just alter the Constitution the way they seem fit, right? So I forgot what his last name was. Tribe. I forgot what his first name was.
Then I think the other connection was Tony Rezko, who was like I think he was a Syrian businessman in Chicago. I think he was. I haven't looked into that one. That was another shady connection. But I would say, if to understand Barack Obama, you have to look into three connections: connection to Frank Marshall Davis, Derek Bell, and Bill Ayers / Bernadine Dorn. I mean, I consider Bill Ayers, Bernadine, their husband, wife. Those are three connections you have to look into.
So one main point, real quick, is with that New York Times article that Bill Ayers placed in advance, plan to have it released on September 11th. Now, think about this before the first plane hit the tower. I want people also to think about Building 7 and how that's a 47 story, I think a 47 story, a 45 story steel frame building that was not hit by a plane, that went down in its own footprint. So that now we're putting this stuff together. And why does not only Bill Ayers, the Weather Underground communists, basically behind this, but this is also tied with the intel community, because without the intel community, Barack Obama would never have been president back in 2009 to begin with. You got that's when John Brennan came in on the scene. Remember John Brennan's background with the basically the Analysis Corporation. If you can bring up the Analysis Corporation, okay, and read their mission statement and look at they're the ones that were, remember, they were the ones in charge of the security of the U.S. State Department when they went in and breached Obama's official records, right? And I have a person that worked with, her name I think is Tori Berge, or she goes as the name Tori says. Now she'll come out and post. Now she claims that John Brennan, who was Barack Obama's senior campaign advisor during his 2008 campaign for president, she said that John Brennan ordered her to go in the U.S. State Department and take out official records from Barack Obama's file or whatever in the U.S. State Department that would have made him, in my opinion, I believe she said, would make him ineligible to be president to begin with. And forget about his background, whether he's born in Kenya or whatever. We're talking about the ties with the intel community, with the Analysis Corporation, who was a government contractor for the United States, right? For the U.S. State Department, for the three-letter agencies. They were ones that provided equipment for putting people to basically adequately conduct surveillance on their political enemies, right? Or basically whoever they wanted to conduct surveillance on. And I'd like to bring up this fact real quick. A Mother Jones article came out on January 20th of 2009 or January 21st, 2009, the very first day that Obama was in office. Mother Jones put out an article, Obama to Bush, I can release your records, don't like it, sue. So, far as confiscating records, how that ties in with Mar-a-Lago, there you got the same people, the intel community that was involved with the Mar-a-Lago illegal raid on Trump's residence in Palm Beach. So those are the ties that join together. Now these contractors had these people on a watch list. If you look at the Analysis Corporation, look at how much money they got in government contracts in like 2008, the year before Obama took over as president. I think it was like $15 million in government contracts. The year before, I think it was like 20 something million or 29 million. But in 2009, the government contracts during Obama presidency rose from like around $19 million a year to $150 million. Freedom. $150 million. So if you look at the Analysis Corporation, you look at John Brennan, his name just came up as one of those, I think, has got a subpoena of those 30 that got subpoenaed. Okay, I think by the FBI or whatever. If you look at his history, before he joined the Analysis Corporation, so this is all premeditated, right? In my opinion, these are just my opinions or my theories, right? So I'm not accusing anybody. This is important. Not accusing anybody of doing anything wrong, no matter whose name I bring up. They all have due process of law rights, and they're all presumed to be innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. Okay, so before John Brennan was selected as president of the Analysis Corporation, he had 25 years already with the Central Intelligence Agency. Now we fast forward again to go back to 2001. 2001, who was the FBI director during 9/11?
Name Bob Mueller.
Robert Mueller, correct. Now, for a lot of people that don't remember, Robert Mueller was the FBI director up into the middle of the Biden second term. Mueller did not leave to be leave from being the FBI director until 2013. He left in 2013, and he basically served the whole 4 years of Biden's first term, right? So from 2009 plus 4 is 2013, right? So am I right there? Yeah, 2013 from or 2014. I can't remember which. But anyways, Robert Mueller did not leave till 2013. That's when he retired, basically. So now the chairman, the reason why I'm bringing up Robert Mueller is during the 9/11 criminal investigation, the Senate Intelligence Committee chairman, Bob Graham, he used to be the governor of the state of Florida. He called Robert Mueller basically, I'm paraphrasing, aggressively deceptive during the criminal 9/11 investigation. Aggressively deceptive. That's paraphrased. He was aggressively deceiving or something to that those words there. But basically, so in my opinion, that's the reason why they chose Robert Mueller to be special counsel. Once he took over special counsel with the Russia stuff, right? They could go in and get all that information and basically send it to the burn barrel, right? And destroy it all. Remember, Robert Mueller and his angry team of what was it? How many Democrats during the special counsel time frame when they're trying to falsely imprison Trump or get him thrown in prison, whatever. When that ended, when they dissolved the special counsel, they destroyed all their devices, all their phones. They destroyed the SIM cards or whatever. They destroyed it all. And that right there is against the law. You see how they run out the statute of limitations, right? How they run it out so they can't be held. But this is just my opinion. This is RH's opinion, nobody else. I'm not saying Robert Mueller, but he's got a lot of questions to answer, in my opinion, right? And I think he needs to be subpoenaed too. But they're saying, oh, he's feeble now, his health, he's a good old man, right? He's a good man. He's a really kind guy. Remember, like how they said with Biden, with the documents he had in his garage and all those other places, Penn State, I think it was, and the prosecutor. I think it was the prosecutor guy or the guy that was assigned to that, an FBI guy. I think his last name is Hur, if I'm not mistaken. He said, "Oh, he's such a nice old guy, right?" So they're going to play that card. It seems like if they do subpoena Robert Mueller in, but they know how to protect themselves and they know how to wipe things clean with a cloth where you never ever see it again.
Yeah, right. And the other thing about you bring up 9/11, the investigation. You have to look up who was the key official in charge of the Department of Justice's investigation to 9/11 in 2001. It was a man named Michael Chertoff. And one thing on Michael Chertoff is he was also key in writing the Patriot Act. He actually wrote the Patriot Act, which essentially stripped us of our Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. So, and like I said, Patriot Act was written before 9/11. It was already ready to be passed. And one of the key people investigating in the Department of Homeland Security was Michael Chertoff. Now, you guys need to look it up. I don't want to get you in trouble because I know if I say certain things, it's provocative, but Michael Chertoff was a key man behind the investigation of 9/11 and the key man that pushed the Patriot Act. This guy is probably the biggest traitor we've ever had in the American government because he's the one who really stripped us of our constitutional rights. Michael Chertoff. I want you, everyone in the chat, I want you to look him up. Michael Chertoff. And there's so many other names.
Can you write that name in the comment section or no, the chat, whatever?
I don't have an account right now, so
okay.
Yeah, Michael Chertoff. I really think, because people really need to investigate who was really behind 9/11. We can talk about the controlled demolition or whatever, but we need to really get behind of who was behind this mass murder of Americans, which got us stripped of our constitutional rights and have got us involved in 2 wars. It was actually expanded after that by Obama. It started with 2 wars, and Obama expanded those wars to Libya and Syria. So we need to get to behind what, because 9/11 was, that was the beginning of the downfall of America. That was the start of it. It wasn't just about the war. It was a systematic takeover of the American system. That's why they had all that. That's why we got the Project for a New American Century, which came out, which called for a new Pearl Harbor in
Right.
2000 in 1990. It was in what, 1997, I believe it came out. Or
Would
I know
that
there
come
was
out in
one.
the Atlantic, or was it what did it come out in? I thought it came out in the Atlantic.
I think so, but PNAC was a think tank, and they published a document which was essentially calling for I forget where it came out from. And look at the people who were part of PNAC. It was like, it was a lot of people in the Bush administration: Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz,
Okay,
Robert Kagan,
what I
Bill
can do
Kristol.
that Sherlock, can you spell it? I can go ahead and type it in the chat for everybody that's interested.
Somebody already typed it, actually. Michael Chertoff. Someone already typed it in the YouTube. It's
Oh,
Chertoff. Yes. This was a man who was really behind. He was behind the lack of investigation
okay.
of 9/11.
Oh,
And
Nurse
like I
Julie
said,
did. Okay, I got it.
like,
I can
and there's
put it
so
up
many
on.
other we have to really go into, like, when it comes to 9/11, we really have to go into, like, the names of who was behind, who owned the World Trade Center, like Larry Silverstein and Frank Lowy, who were, Frank Lowy was the CEO of what's that company called, uh, Westfield, which owns a bunch of shopping malls in America. They own the basement of the World Trade Center. Larry Silverstein, he had just bought the World Trade Center a year earlier. Um, who finalized the transfer of the World Trade Center to Larry Silverstein. Originally, was owned by a Port Authority in New York. That was Louis Eisenberg. Who was behind the security at the World Trade Center? That was Kroll Security.
Martin,
Yeah, I think
the
it was a company called Kroll
cousin,
Security.
Bush's cousin, right?
Yeah, and the other company was Kroll Security. That was the company which was behind the security at the World Trade Center. So there's a lot of things. There's just a lot of things about 9/11 which need to come out. Who was really, who really attacked us on that day. Who are the people that are involved. Like I said, it's the people, like, I can't say the name, but I do think it's a deep it's like a mafia, essentially, which has attacked us on 9/11 and tricked us into these 2 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, which really had nothing to do, because I've said this multiple times. Saddam Hussein, he had never threatened America. He was actually originally, we put Saddam Hussein in power, and he was our ally during the Iraq-Iran war from 1980 to
Yeah.
1988. And all he want, whatever people say about the Gulf War, it was like, even Cheney said that, in 1990, in the 19, Dick Cheney's gone now, but he said that it was a bad idea to invade Iraq. And he said this in 1994. This is before the actual invasion happened. He said that during the First World War, that, if we invade after the first Gulf War, that if we invade Iraq, it'll destabilize the entire region. It will threaten the territorial integrity of Turkey. It'll be divided between the Sunni Shias and Kurds. So it's like, it would have been a disaster. But that's what these people, we just got to get involved. Who was behind 9/11? Who got us in all these wars? And look, and
Yeah.
I would say, I'm just going in 100 different places right now. If you look at what Barack Obama did, Barack
Well, hold on a
Obama
second
uses.
before you leave that topic about Iraq and Saddam Hussein being basically an ally. Yeah, I mean, if you look at their license, the International Atomic Energy Agency, whatever, I think it's the IAEA. We pretty much run that, right? But anyways, that agency, we licensed the quote unquote peaceful nuclear power program for Iraq. Now, I think we did that during the Reagan years, right? When Iraq was at war with Iran. So we actually licensed the nuclear power plants, and they did have access to uranium and that kind of thing. A lot of people, I think before 9/11, I think Israel conducted a strike on one of those nuclear power plants, if I'm not mistaken or not. If you can look that, you could probably look that up.
They
Find
did,
that
they
quick.
did, and I know one of the pilot who did that strike. It was Elon Ramon. He died on the space shuttle. He died on he died in the space shuttle accident in 2003.
So there's another theory out there. I like to bring this up because I talked about this. I've been talking about this recently. There's a theory that we had to go back into Iraq again because we wanted to take control of some Sumerian tablets connected to Gilgamesh and Uruk, right? And I think that the archaeologists just found that um, basically that country or that area, Uruk, if I'm not mistaken. Now I could be wrong on how to pronounce it, but I just got into that a little bit longer. But it's very something kind of like, you know how Nimrod and you know how they had in the fallen angels, how they had access to advanced technology through the fallen angels, right? You know, in Genesis chapter 6, when it talks about the angels basically going down and taking wives of all they chose of the daughters of men because they found them fair. Well, and they talk about men of what do you call it, renown, these giants. Well, if you tie that in with Nimrod, Nimrod was basically the same thing, right? So they believe that Nimrod had some type of ancient technology. This is the theory. And the reason why we went into Iraq is possibly they had something that was something like life extend to extend your life. Uh, and if you look out in the book of Jasher, even though it's not a canonized in the Bible, you look up in the book of Jasher, it talks about Nimrod and certain things where he very well could have had technology. Now, come on, now look at the pyramids and look how how the engineering feat of making those, like the Great Pyramid, for example, right? You know, that's not just some cavemen and cave women out there stomping on some straw and some mud, right, to make mortar to stack bricks on top of each other. That thing is like what, almost like perfectly aligned with true north, I think it is. And it basically, there's some features of it where it's kind of like aligned or positioned with the Orion, you know, Orion. So I don't know how much you've got into that, but they had, it wasn't only, remember, uh, Saddam Hussein was basically calling himself the new Nebuchadnezzar. And they were afraid that he was going to get a hold of possible technology that could be very dangerous or basically make Saddam Hussein a cell far as military wise goes. And there's a theory that we went in there and took over that area where Gilgamesh's sarcophagus was, and we took over that. And we also raided the Baghdad Museum. You can look that up. That raid actually did happen. And the people that went in, I did a pretty good deep dive into that raid of the Baghdad Museum. Uh, we basically took over that area. They 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 didn't go in and take out like gold gemstones. Their main focus was on the Sumerian tablets, what was written, as far as during the Gilgamesh era, whatever. And I thought a lot of that was interesting. So there's a lot of live streams or channels that are popping up that are talking about this. So could that been the weapons of mass destruction that Gilgamesh had, which came basically from the fallen angels, the advanced technology, alien technology, if you will, or technology that was passed down from Noah to Ham to Cush and Cush to Nimrod. Okay, so a lot of us are doing a lot of research into the, you know, our scriptures and um, historical events and trying to see if that ties together. But it's very interesting, to say the least. And I'm definitely involved in looking at researching that further before I talk more about it than I have tonight. But do you have any thoughts on that at all? Far
I
as
haven't looked into it. Like I haven't really looked into it, but yeah, you are correct that in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that's where Babylon was in what's modern day Iraq, and that's where the Tower of Babel was built, and
and the technology was so advanced for their at that time, and that's the reason why God said if they can come together as one with the same language and do this, what else can they be capable of doing? So, and they
scattered them
scattered
among the nations.
right amongst all the nations and changed their language, or what I mean, where they couldn't come together as one, and it was there's some books out there that they don't have canonized, like Jasher, I think it is. Let's see,
Asher, yeah.
I have that here in my source reference pages, but I didn't mean to kind of like go off on a different road there. But let's see here. Let me spell it out for y'all.
But one thing we can all agree on: the war in Iraq was the most disastrous war the United States ever fought. I mean, we attacked a country. I know some people will argue me that it was Vietnam, but Vietnam is a different situation. Vietnam was a country that was already in a state of war. It was already in a state of war between North and South, and we just got involved because we were protecting the South. Iraq was a country where we just attacked and occupied for no reason in 2003. I mean, I won't say no reason. There's probably hidden reason, but Iraq had done nothing wrong to us. Saddam Hussein had not attacked us, and we were
Well,
just
yeah. Well, to talk about that a little bit more, I mean, once we attacked them during those Desert Shield, then Desert Storm, and once we hit those palaces and we killed his, next, I mean, a lot of his own relatives in those presidential palaces. Basically the first hour of that war, we already won it because we took over air superiority, knocked them out, their surveillance, the radars and that kind of thing, and their communications. So they were blind. They were not only blind, they couldn't see us coming in, but because of the stealth technology we had, but also other communications was disrupted. So the commanders couldn't basically coordinate with their frontline commanders on the ground, right? So they basically lost the first hour of the war. And once we attacked them on Desert Storm, Saddam Hussein wasn't going to basically sit around the campfire with us and sing Kumbaya. You know what I mean? So at that point, we were already enemies, and I think now I don't support wars. I mean, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Okay, that's Matthew chapter 5, verse 8, right? Or 9. So I think 5 verse 9. So that's why I don't agree with wars, but at that point, they're going to go into Afghanistan. You'd have basically two enemies at your back, right? Whoever we were fighting in, as far as the Taliban and in the Afghanistan war, and then we had Saddam Hussein to worry about too as well. I don't know if that's the reason why they made that agreement to basically uh, regime change in Iraq or not. I don't know, because if I was read into that program, I definitely wouldn't be even mentioning it right now. You know what I mean? So
And
I'm just going by what I think may or may not have happened.
thing is, I would say the bigger disaster, the biggest foreign, Iraq and Afghanistan were foreign policy disasters. Don't get me wrong, but I think the biggest foreign policy disaster was Syria, because in Syria it was Operation. You could Jeffrey Sachs. He did a good talk on this. He talks about, when Obama was president, he engaged in this operation called Operation Timber Sycamore, which was essentially. Yeah, this is another thing people need to look up. Operation Timber Sycamore. This is probably the
Yeah, I've
most
already with Tony Schaefer. I was directed there a long time ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
where we
Operation
were.
Timber Sycamore, in my opinion, is probably the most
Yeah,
evil.
we were funding Al Qaeda basically.
It's probably the most evil operation that the United States, our government, has engaged in, and I really mean Operation Timber Sycamore. It's worse than Operation Cyclone, which created the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. I'd say Operation Timber Sycamore. What we were doing, we're claiming to fight Al Qaeda in Iraq and Afghanistan, but now in Syria, we were sending. Oh, Barack Obama, and Barack Obama said at one time that we are actively engaged in arming ISIL forces, and that's exactly what he was doing because ISIL or ISIS or Islamic State, they were just Al Qaeda in Iraq. They were just Al Qaeda in Syria and Iraq. That's all they were, and we were sending arms to them. It was under Barack Obama.
Yeah,
I want everyone to be clear. It was Barack Obama who ordered this. Order came directly from the White House. Was to really, after we bombed Libya, was to raid all of Libya's armories and send all those weapons to Syria. And that's what happened. And that's what created the power vacuum in Syria, and led to the migrant crisis, which flooded Germany and Sweden and Italy and many other European countries with refugees. And this was all done by former President Barack Hussein Obama. He's the one who destabilized Syria, and Syria was a border state. That's why all these refugees were able to go into Europe. So Barack Obama, he didn't just change America, he changed the face of Europe too. More than any other person in the history, more than Adolf Hitler or Mussolini or whatever. Barack Obama changed the face of Europe. Like, Europe was never the same, and it's all thanks to Barack Hussein Obama. Operation Timber Sycamore. I want people to remember that. And
yeah,
Barack Obama
yeah.
also overthrew the government.
If you will, before I forget this, uh, you know, if you look at the article that Fox News report that put out on December 26th of 2001, the title of that article, I may have talked about this before when we were running live streams before when you were on. I don't remember or not, but I'm going to still provide the information. It'll be like a review if you heard this before. Now, Fox News put out an article on December 26th of 2001 after 9/11, right? That bin Laden already dead. That's the actual title of the article. Now, bin Laden is already dead. So we had what was called the Northern Alliance. The Northern Alliance mission was in. If you bring this, you can't bring this up, right? You can view it if you can bring it up on your end, correct? But you can't share it.
Yeah, right now I can't. Yeah.
Okay, if you look at on your end, the Northern Alliance disbanded in late December of 2001. What was the mission for the Northern Alliance?
Capture bin Laden.
Right, to take out Al Qaeda leadership in Afghanistan, to basically defeat the Taliban, and to take back over Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. That was their mission. Now look at the allies in the Northern Alliance. The top ally in the Northern Alliance that we had at the time was the Islamic State of Afghanistan. So that kind of ties in with your Operation Timber Sycamore that basically was pointed in the right direction to go by Anthony Schaefer, Colonel Anthony Schaefer.
So I mean, in the end,
Look at the players in Northern Alliance. It's very important. Russia was a major player in the Northern Alliance. Of course, the United States was. Also, Iran. Iran was a ally during the Northern Alliance time frame. And also, Ukraine was the Northern Alliance along with the United States of America. Okay. And also, non-state allies, NATO. NATO was also a member of the Northern Alliance. Okay, now specific United Kingdom, the specific countries outside of NATO. Australia, of course, is NATO, right? So all these countries participated in the Northern Alliance to take out Al Qaeda, the Taliban, and recapture Kabul. So, recapture Kabul. So now go back to Fox News report, bin Laden already dead. A lot of us believe that he was killed in a bombing operation in the mountains of Tora Bora in the end of December of 2001. Now go to Fox News again on January 13th of 2015. Fox News put out the same report, bin Laden already dead. Now, what happened between the Northern Alliance basically completing their mission, taking out bin Laden, right? And basically taking back over Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, right? And taking out the Al Qaeda leaders. What happened between, what happened at the end of 2001 when the Northern Alliance disbanded? They focused everything from that point on to Iraq. Okay, so they transitioned to Iraq. And now this is important. The Northern Alliance operated between 1992, after Desert Storm. That's when they formed. So we had Russia working with the United States in the Northern Alliance. Northern Alliance, of course, the United States being the primary party in the Northern Alliance. So between the Fox News report and on December 26th of 2001 and the Fox News update of the same report on January 13th of 2015, in between that, Biden had what was called Operation Neptune Spear. Do you recall what Operation Neptune Spear was all about? Freedom?
Refresh my memory on that.
Okay, that's when they had the raid in
the
Abbottabad,
SEAL Team
Pakistan.
6. SEAL
Right.
Team 6. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of information that came out. Basically, if you go back and look at I can change this up now. Hold on a second, I'll do that. I'm going to change my avatar photograph real quick. Stand by.
Yeah, I might have to go, because I have to go to work tomorrow, so I might have to go soon.
Okay. But anyways, I didn't mean to take you off track of what you were talking about, your train of thought there. So do you have anything to add to that information I just talked about? So how could Obama and Clinton and all those people that were involved in it, John Brennan, remember they had a mock CIA compound, identical mock compound of Abbottabad, Pakistan, in North Carolina. So, in my opinion, the Operation Neptune Spear was a sim over live operation. Remember, Leon Panetta said that the live feed was cut. So they didn't even see, those people in the Situation Room didn't even see bin Laden being killed. And all we have to have is their word that they got the DNA, right? So that's all we got. So if they lie about one thing, what makes us believe that they're not going to lie about something else, and then something else, and something else, right? So I think it's very important for people, to just keep an open mind and look at all possibilities when we're talking about these individuals. And look how far they've come. They've nearly taken total control of the United States of America.
Running out of time. The thing is, we are running out of time. We are, because I don't know how much longer this is going to go because right now we've had an invasion at the southern border for the past 4 years ever since Biden came in. People
Exactly.
had a
Exactly. Go
southern
ahead.
invasion. We're at risk. I mean, or we're at risk with the war with Russia right now, based on what's happening in Ukraine, based on a decision that was made in 2014. Um, in Syria, look what the aftermath, because Bashar al-Assad was he was a Shia Muslim, but he was protecting all the Christians in Syria. Now that the new Syrian leadership with the new Sunni Muslim government, they're persecuting Christians right now. So
Yeah.
we got that. We got the Israel and Palestine conflict. I don't want to get into that because I know that always gets people agitated. We got the conflict in the South China Sea, which could go hot any second now. So I know what's his name, Gunter Greengrass. I think it was what was his name, Gunter thing, Green Gunter Grass. I think was his name. I think he was a German author and artist. He said that we risk we could speak of a third world war coming about because we got so many situations. First we got Ukraine. We got Ukraine, then we got Israel and Palestine. We got the mess. We got the problem with ISIS in Iraq and the problem with Syria. And now we have the South China Sea. So we risk making the same mistakes every day. And you know,
Yeah. By the way, I've just put up that avatar photograph. Now, in this avatar photograph, this is supposedly the White House Situation Room, and you see Hillary Clinton there. You see, looks like John Podesta. You got Anthony Blinken. You got John Brennan in the background. You can't see those people. So if you go to the White House Situation Room, far as I think it was May 1st of what was that, 2011, right? So in the picture, you'll see Obama. Does it look like they just took out the number one terrorist mastermind of 9/11 in that picture?
look
Or
concerned.
they look like they saw something horrible that would to go, man, we're never going to be in government. We're going to lose our position. We're done. Our political careers are over. Look at Obama, the way he's sunken into his chair in his golf attire, right? You can't see Biden's face because he's off the screen in this avatar photograph that's got cuts out the corners, right? So you can't see him, but you got Anthony Blinken. Every one of these individuals had something to gain or lose politically and personally if that mission went south. So what are they looking at? You see this like secret note form picture in front of Clinton, right? Right in front of her near that laptop. I think that's a picture of the compound. But that could be a picture of the compound, the CIA mock compound in North Carolina. That could have been a sim over live operation, an actual exercise pretending to take out Osama bin Laden in North Carolina, while the other hand is over there in Abbottabad, Pakistan, thinking that they're going to take out Osama bin Laden, but it probably was a double. The thing that basically threw them off about the believability thing with this is that barrel at sea moment. And the barrel at sea moment, I got people like the Master Chief aboard the USS Carl Vinson that said he had no idea, no knowledge of a barrel at sea. It was only they said that it was basically only four high level officials like staff members that were took part in that barrel of sea moment on the USS Carl Vinson. As far as that, how did that body get all the way in a helicopter, all the way from after they flew all the way to that compound in Abbottabad and get all the way back to the USS Carl Vinson for a burial at sea moment? So, and there's, I think Seymour Hersh and others followed up on the emails of those Navy men on that ship, with basically that there was no talk. Now they could have been ordered not to talk about it. That's a possibility, but I don't believe the barrel at sea moment either.
It's definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, go on.
well, we talked about a lot of topics. Maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe next time we kind of like give people a broad view of a lot of things that are going on. And this current government that we elected, for the most part, they need to get on top of this stuff, or we're not going to have a country. Like you mentioned, the invasion at our border for 4 years.
One thing Trump needs to do is like, one thing I'm just kind of like him willing to give Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Like I said, we need a ceasefire in Ukraine as soon as possible. We do need that, and he needs to do an investigation into like what really happened in Ukraine in 2014, how the Obama administration essentially engaged in a coup to overthrow Yanukovych. So we need to, we
Well,
can't keep up.
there's new allegations about Zelensky and his basically his inner circle of
And
about stealing $100 million from American taxpayers. $100 million that just came out recently, like the night before last, I think it was. So there's so much criminal corruption going on there, and it's basically a money grab, in my opinion, now. Because there's really, look at even Russia. What is their objective now? What is
well,
their
but
overall objective?
well, like I said, I think with Russia, they just did not want. They do not want NATO troops directly on their southern flank. That's it. They already lost the Baltic states. Finland has joined NATO. And like I said, Ukraine historically has been. It was originally called Russia was originally called the Kievan Rus Empire. So, they don't want to see. They just don't want to lose it. They just said enough is enough. You're going after Georgia. You've taken the Baltic states. You got Poland. You got Finland, and you're essentially cornering us. We're not going to. Enough is enough. We're not going to let you take Ukraine now. It's like imagine if. Imagine if another country, say China or like India or South Africa, decided that they want to overthrow the government in Canada and start putting troops in our northern border. I'm sure America would view that as a threat. So
Yeah.
it really,
Well, we talked about this before when you're on before on the panel. We talked about um, Sevastopol and Crimea, that they've had Russia's had basically physical control of, going all the way back to Russian Christian emperors, Catherine the Great, right? So
and
going all the
Catherine the
way
Great
back
was
to
emperor. She was the emperor during the Revolutionary War too. I believe she signed a document recognizing the United States existence right after. But she died in 1791, so she was there when America was founded, Catherine the Great. And it's not just that. We've had a historical connection with Russia. I mean, it was like during the Civil War, it was Tsar Alexander II. He's the one he dispatched like a Russian naval fleet to I think it was to New York, I believe. He dispatched it from St. Petersburg. And it was in 1867 where Russia sold it. It was during the where they sold it. It was a President Andrew Johnson who bought Alaska from the Russian Empire, and the reason the Russian Empire sold us Alaska is they were just concerned the British might get control of it. So we have a very close relationship with Russia. Then during the First World War, we fought alongside Russia against Germany, and during World War II, we fought. We really owe the Russians a great deal of debt for helping us defeat the Germans during the Second World War.
Even Sevastopol, it was captured by Nazi Germany, and the Allies, one that helped recapture. That's Crimea, right? We helped Russia recapture the Sevastopol. That's the port for the Russian Black Sea Fleet, by the way, in case people don't know that. And I do believe the whole war hinges on Crimea and Sevastopol, and I believe the West or um, the West wants to take over that port so they can do oil and gas prospecting in the Black Sea. That I think that's their entire objective for trying to push Russia out of their historical territory in Sevastopol and Crimea. And I
It
think
makes
that's what the whole war, I believe, is hinged off that. Because remember, Burisma Holdings International is an oil and gas prospect company. So they put Biden's son on that board, right? They also put the former CIA director of counterterrorism, Cofer Black, who was during the 2012, he was a senior campaign advisor for Mitt Romney. So there's Mitt Romney's ties in that too, as well. Personal interest involved in taking over Crimea for Ukraine. So I do believe if they keep the same border in eastern Ukraine, but they have to basically, the international community is going to have to remain objective, say, okay, well, this is historically Russian territory as far as Crimea goes. I do believe they can end the war on that amount, but no one wants to budge because
Yeah.
there's too much financial interest involved in taking over Crimea, either one way or the other.
Yeah, and I feel like the only countries which are really supporting Russia at this point are Iran, I think, and Iran, North Korea, India, and China. That's pretty much it.
I think China backed off a lot because they don't really financially, far as their financial interests, other than them constructing pipelines for themselves, you know, uh, it doesn't. It's not to their financial advantage for that war to continue. And I do believe that President Trump is working that angle, though, in my opinion.
I don't know why is he willing to give Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine because really like Trump needs to realize that this war in Ukraine, we can end if we just acknowledge, if we could just recognize. Because, like I said, when Russia quote, and I say quote because it wasn't really that, when Russia quote annexed Crimea, I mean the majority of Crimea is majority ethnic Russian, and they voted like 93% to secede and join the Russian Federation. It was nobody was killed in the process. It was not an invasion, but the West automatically declared it as an invasion, essentially. Even though, like, after America, what they did to Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and Syria, those were not considered invasions. Those countries are in total shamble and turmoil thanks to America's invasion. But with Crimea, it was a peaceful referendum. So,
Yeah.
and
Well, one thing I have to say is that we have to hold on. Go ahead with your thought real quick. There's something I gotta bring up, but I'm gonna have to rephrase it.
well, yeah, like what I'm saying is like what's going on with Russia and like what happened there is we should really just recognize we should have recognized that Crimea is historically Russian territory because Crimea was not part of Ukraine until what is it 1951 when what's his name Nikita Khrushchev, who was also Ukrainian, he's the one who transferred the
Right.
sovereignty of Crimea to Ukraine.
Yeah,
just to
you're the
benefit
first one that agreed when I said the first time on my channel that Nikita Khrushchev is actually Ukrainian. He was born in Ukraine. A lot of
Yeah.
people didn't know that. They don't know that to this day. By the way, whether it's a coincidence or not, September 11th, 2001 is the 30-year anniversary of Nikita Khrushchev's death, the Ukrainian. Oh, and by the what I wanted to say, hold on a second. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my point is, Crimea was like historically It was historically Russian territory. Like, saying Crimea, like,
It was a joint
it's
partnership there, but historically, Russia has had physical control of Crimea for over like 240 years.
yeah.
So
So
the basic what we need to do for Russia or to end this war for both the Ukrainian citizens and the Russian citizens is basically establish the fact that Ukraine cannot be part of NATO at all. They cannot be part of NATO. And I go back to that because that was our promise. Remember, Secretary of State James Baker said that we would not go 1 inch further east regarding,
the
remember?
thing is when the Cold War ended in December of 1991. Really, what we should have done is like George H.W. Bush should have gone to Germany. He should have gone to Ramstein Air Force Base and announced his closure, saying that NATO's mission is accomplished. NATO's probably the most obsolete organization in existence. Its mission is accomplished was to counter the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union no longer exists. I mean, after that, once the Soviet Union fell apart, we established strong diplomatic ties. I mean, what's his name? Boris Yeltsin came to America. Yes. It was after that. I mean, we had the space shuttle Mir program where we sent our astronauts to the Mir space station. Then we got Russia on board the International Space Station project, which is still working right now. Russia was our friend during the war on terrorism. It's just this whole notion that the Soviet Union, that the whole point of NATO was to counter the Soviet Union, the Warsaw Pact, and look, all the Warsaw Pact don't exist anymore. But the thing is, like, really, what we should have done is announce the dissolution of NATO, but we did not do that. We just decided to expand it. I could go on a whole rant about how the Yugoslavian wars were also like unlawful and unjust, but that's another story. This should not have happened in the first place. NATO should not exist. It should be dissolved, and like I said, Crimea should be recognized as a part of Russia now. It historically was a part of Russia, and that's where it should be. I think that's all they want. So I think if we just recognize that Crimea is a part of Russia, sign an agreement that we would not expand NATO to Ukraine, I'm sure Russia will probably withdraw. And I think Donetsk and Luhansk, those are majority ethnic Russian countries. Those I think belong to Russia too, or they should at least have some self-autonomy. Because I don't even think they even wanted to be part of Russia. They just wanted self-autonomy. But what's his name? Ukraine under Petro Poroshenko started shelling civilians and labeled it as a anti-terror organization operation. So, I'm gonna leave it there. I do need to go to work tomorrow, so I do want to wish you, a happy Veterans Day, and thank you for your service to our country. We'll talk more again soon. Thank you for messaging me tonight. I do appreciate that. I'm sorry for cutting it off so bluntly, but
No. You had your train of thought going, and that's I think you kind of get mental fatigue when we talked about so many subjects. You know what I mean? But maybe next time we can go in and focus in on maybe one or two subjects. You know what I mean? Really go in, because you got a lot of detailed information, same as I do in a lot of cases. Not
Can I
all
ask,
cases, but
is a Trainwreck Travis, or is he still around, or?
yeah, I talked to him. He's out something to do with harvesting now. Like corn, I think it is.
Mhm.
I don't know too much. I think he's out in Oklahoma. Or Texas, I think. He's out in Texas or Oklahoma. I think Texas now. Oh,
Does he still stream, or because I haven't seen him stream in a long
no,
time?
he hasn't streamed in quite a long time. And basically he doesn't have time, because when you're in the harvesting, I mean, you got to jump to it. You know what I mean? So
He was a truck mechanic before. Last time when we were speaking, he was a truck mechanic, wasn't he? Before.
yeah, he works on heavy like equipment related to agricultural stuff. You know what I mean?
Like
That kind of thing.
those John Deere combines and tractors, or
Yeah. So,
okay.
anyways, Finding Freedom, I really appreciate you coming in on the live stream, and maybe we can pick somebody else up. If not, though, I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream here in about 5 or 10 minutes. And thanks for coming on board. You were a lot of help tonight.
Problem. You have a good night. Okay, talk to you soon.
All right, good night.
Good night. Bye.
Okay, so that was Finding Freedom. A lot of information to unpack there. I want to see if there's any remember if there's any loose ends that I need to tie up here before we shut down the live stream. I was hoping to get some more veterans in here before it gets too much later, I guess, to get further on in the night. So, anyways, thank you everybody for being here. Nurse Julie, I appreciate your help, and like always, man, I was so looking forward to going to that Top Gun bar, I guess in San Diego. But I might be able to do that with my sister one time. So I think it'll be really cool to do a live stream from that bar. They have Wi-Fi or whatever. I'm sure they do. Hold on, everybody. I'll be right back and see if anybody else comes in the live stream. I shared the link in a lot of places tonight, so maybe somebody will get a surprise visit before I shut down. So stand by. I'll be right back. And RH is back. I got to fix up my screen here. For some reason, my screen has gone haywire. And as far as I know, the live streams are still going strong on both YouTube and Rumble. Okay, let me get back to YouTube here real quick. Uh-oh. Okay, so we're still live on YouTube and Rumble, it appears. Do a quick audio check. I'll hang around here for a few more minutes, see if one of those individuals I invited comes up on the channel, whatever, or the live stream. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that was a nice surprise finding Freedom. I didn't even realize he was in the back room, and didn't even realize he was here. It's been a long time since I've shared a link to the panel. You know, maybe Nurse Julie can come up on the panel one night, and talk about her whereabouts and her life and how it's changed since she moved up to Great Northwest, I call it. But anyways, yeah, somebody got on Finding Freedom. I remember who it was, but I won't mention any names. Take a breath. Take a breath. It was Oh, it's another person going in and out, and they were having a casual conversation, and there was no break between that conversation and any other conversation. So no, there's people that gotta keep the beat. They have to be the alpha, right, in the room. There's so much information that Finding Freedom has got stored up there in that noggin of his, and man, it can overwhelm you. You know, you got to break it up a little bit. You know what I mean? So I'm saying that as a good thing. So let's see here. Get back to this. Go back to the theme here. Take away that White House Situation Room. Stage. Photos. Photo stage, whatever you call it. Stage photo. All right. So I appreciate again everybody's help here tonight in the live stream. I'm going to have to end this here. I got a lot of things to do tomorrow, and I would like to take a break for a while, but maybe when I get back from my trip, I can basically relax for a few days and come back up and do another live stream. So please click on the alerts for the channel. If you haven't subscribed to Area 111 over on YouTube, please subscribe and please follow on Rumble. I'm at Area 111 without the space on Rumble and Area space 111 on YouTube. So with that said, unless anybody has anything else to say in the chat, I'll give it about 30 seconds. And remember, all we got to do is stay on the right team, right? And talking about team spirit, the right team spirit, spiritually and physically, you can go check out the team spirit in John chapter 17. Go check that out. Our team, right? Remember, there are more of us than there are of them. If God is on our side, who can be against us, right? They can be against us, but they're going to have some rough sailing until they straighten out their problems. So, okay. So with that said, good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you're from. This concludes the live stream, and God bless. Thank you.